Have you ever wanted to create the financial freedom to make medicine optional, to practice it as much or as little as you want? If that's you, keep listening to learn more. Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode number 84 of the Physician Philosopher podcast, where we take an uncurated and unapologetic look into physician life, money, and mindset. Today's thought is this: if doctors can master medicine, then doctors can master money. So what's up, everybody? I know we've had a lot of personal finance episodes lately. That's because Medical Degree Financial University is opening up. So couldn't be more excited about that. Summer has officially arrived. My 3 kids are finishing up school, and the Turner household is about to get a lot busier, a lot more, rambunctious and loud. And in times past, this would be a problem for me because I am a skillful master at the art of always being busy. So honestly, staying busy is a bit of a buffer for me. If I stay busy, I don't have to deal with being bored or asking existential life questions and trying to answer those about what I'm doing with this one crazy life that I get. In fact, I saw a post someone had up on, I think it was Facebook recently, that pretty much summed me up to a T. It was something like there's, a difference between being happy and being busy so that you aren't sad. And for a lot of my, last 5 years, like that second half has kind of been me. Like I've been busy to avoid being sad, to avoid doing the work. And busyness, I should say, is a go-to buffer for me. So it's something that I do in order to not have to do the harder work. And I'm a lot better about it than I used to be, but I've been trying to do some work lately too. And lately I've been doing the work of genuinely not caring what other people think. And this has been an interesting process because, as a self-proclaimed people pleaser for most of my life, caring about what others thought is how I determined what the next steps were going to be in my life. What was I going to do with my time if I wasn't constantly concerned about what other people would agree with and what other people wanted me to do? Or what would I chase after if I didn't have to think about what other people wanted? And in order to answer this question, I had to spend some time actually figuring out what I like to do most in my life. What are my true passions? What am I most concerned about? Where do I find my identity outside of medicine? And for me, it turns into really just one single passion. And this might make sense of why this show is what it is and how my business and my career have unfolded over the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, is justice, right? I care very deeply about justice. In fact, it's the reason that I care about many of the things in my life. And what I mean by that is that, I do not have the ability to sit still when I see things that aren't fair, that aren't right, that aren't okay. And in today's ever-growing culture, the cancel culture, where you can't say anything without offending somebody, this has become a little bit problematic because no matter what you say, you end up offending somebody. And so what has to accompany that is this process of not really caring what other people think. And so I got clear about this. Like, what is my true passion in life? Like, what do I enjoy doing the most? Not who am I, but what do I enjoy doing? And it turns out it's teaching. I love making complicated concepts simple. Now, when you tie teaching to justice, man, I love teaching personal finance. And the reason for that is because I love helping doctors practice medicine because they want to and not because they have to. So they can practice medicine as much or as little as they want. And I love taking those complicated concepts because for a lot of people, money is complicated for them, and making it simple, putting it into frameworks and helping other people apply these concepts to their life, and then sharing them with others so that, they can learn, whether that's through coaching or educational avenues like books or podcasts or, Medical Degree Financial University. And when I got this clarity, it really made me stop and wonder, why am I doing some of the things that don't fit into this category, particularly in my own business, which I completely control? And that's exactly how I got to the point of creating MDFU, is because this puts me right where I want to be, teaching and coaching doctors and doctors in training about something that I love to teach about. And actually, all medical professionals are welcome inside of MDFU. So MDFU is going to be open starting now. It actually has been open for a few days as this episode drops. But then the founding members opportunity closes on the 23rd. And I can't wait for that first lecture with the MDFU students and, the time to follow after this thing closes, because as many of you know, I'm a huge fan of teaching personal finance. And one reason why is because I'm all about protecting doctors and doctors in training from making financial mistakes, because I made a couple of huge ones. One of them, a disability insurance mistake that if I get disabled could cost my family literally 6 or 7 figure sums of money. So like what I wouldn't have done to have somebody stop me from making those mistakes if I'd only known better and people were offering personal finance educations to doctors back then, right? That disability insurance mistake, because I got disability insurance, by the way, when I was a medical student who didn't have an income to protect and I didn't have the need to get insurance. And if I ever become disabled to this day, it's going to be a massive problem. It could be a 7-figure mistake. And that set me on a journey to become an expert at educating doctors about personal finance. Now, I'm not going to say I'm an expert, financial advisor, financial planner, because that's not what I do. What I do is I educate people. I'm not going to manage your money. I would never do that. That's illegal, by the way. I know that. I'm aware. But I love educating people so that they can either A, do it themselves, or B, know enough about money to know when they're getting good advice from their financial advisor or whether they're getting taken to the woodshed, because unfortunately that happens a lot. And that's what I want to talk about with you on this episode, because your mindset around money, it turns out, matters more than just about anything else. And so I figured I'd talk about some helpful money mindsets that I figured out over the last 7-8 years teaching, lecturing about personal finance. I figured why not combine my two favorite topics, money and mindset, and teach you about it here on the show. So here we go. Here are a few money mindsets that can drastically alter your financial life. Because when it comes to personal finance for doctors, one of the biggest mistakes I see doctors make is they focus on numbers because it is so measurable, right? Why is it measurable? Because it's numbers. Yet the numbers don't mean anything if you don't get the mindset right first. So 3 money mindsets. Let's start with the first one. So the first one is starting with the end in mind, which of course I steal from Stephen Covey, who says this famously in his book. Start with the end in mind in his book. It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great book. It's not about money, but it still applies here. It is hard to get to where you're going if you don't know your final destination. And I cannot tell you how many conversations I have with people who are like, "Hey Jimmy, I just inherited X amount of dollars. What should I do with it? Hey Jimmy, I'm thinking about opening up a Roth IRA. Hey Jimmy, I want to know if I should, do the 457 at my work, this non-governmental 457. Is this a good idea? Hey, Jimmy, I want to know, am I saving enough money? Would you recommend that I get a financial advisor or should I do it all on my own? All of these questions, by the way, are excellent questions, right? And I love answering them. That's what I do. That's what I'm going to do in the office hours that are going to be inside of MDFU and the coaching opportunities inside of MDFU. Yet none of them can be answered if we aren't clear about where you're heading. For example, let's make this really concrete because people like concrete examples. Let's say we're talking about investing because it's the easiest one to understand. And yes, investing can be easy to understand. If you're out there and you're like, I don't understand anything about investing. I don't know what a stock, a bond is. I don't know what a put or a call is. I don't know, what a diversified, low cost index fund is. Investing can be easy, I promise. But people often ask me how much they should be saving for retirement. So this is the kind of question that always makes me laugh internally. I don't laugh at people in their face because that's rude, by the way. But what I do is I just kind of chuckle because it's not like there's some magic number out there that all of us can save to get to financial independence. Now, if you came to the recent financial freedom workshops that we had, earlier in June, you know that I do think that there's a percentage of your gross income that you can be saving in order to get to a goal by a reasonable age. But that doesn't produce a magical number. Like I can't tell you that everybody should be saving $50,000 a year or $75,000 a year or $100,000 a year. I think saving 30% of your gross income, by the way, will get you to financial independence if you start doing that right when you finish training at an age that is going to be acceptable for most physicians. Now, that is a rule of thumb. It is a guide. It is a way of thinking, but it is not the end-all be-all answer for everybody. But the number that you need if you spend $10,000 a month in retirement or whether you spend $15,000 a month in retirement are very, very different numbers. And it also depends on where you plan to invest the money. Because as you dig deeper into this with people, they're like, well, yeah, I want to know how much I need to save. You're like, okay, well, let's figure out how much you need. So we'll do that. Particularly in person, I get asked questions like this by my friends all the time. So I'll break out a napkin, a piece of paper. I'll show them the math. And I'll help them figure out like this. If you wanted to be financially independent right now, this is how much money you would need. But then when I dig deeper, I'll say, well, what's your risk tolerance? Like, how comfortable are you saving money? And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm saving lots of money right now. I have $50,000 in my bank account. And again, I kind of chuckle internally because for the record, that's not saving money. Just because inside something called a savings account, I mean, you're saving money, but it's not earning money. I guess I need to split hairs there. But like inflation's been over 8% some months this year in 2022. So if you think your $50,000 is actually doing you any good, I mean, it's better than like going and spending it, I guess. But that $50,000 at the end of the year is not going to be worth $50,000, right? It's going to lose this year like 6, 7, 8%. So if that was $100,000, it would be $6, 7, $8,000 less than what you saved. And so you're actually losing money by saving money if you don't invest it. And so I'll talk to people about that. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, but if I put it in the market right now, like I'm just scared. So in order to answer this question, you have to know how much you're going to need. You're going to need to know your investment philosophy, and you're going to need to know how much risk are you planning to take. All of those things, by the way, require some semblance of a financial education, a minimum amount of knowledge in order to answer them. And that brings us to my second point. Your money mindset matters more than math. I realize that math is measurable. And probably one area where this concept comes up the most is with financial advisors, because pundits, people out there love to talk about, well, hey, if a financial advisor costs X number of dollars, then they're not worth it. And that's not actually how people get paid in life, by the way. I didn't plan on talking about this on this episode, but you get paid for the value that you provide. That's how life works, right? There's a reason why, some people will pay tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for one thing when other people are like, no, I don't think it's worth $100. If you're getting a value out of something, like a financial advisor, for example, it's more than math. Right? Having a third party person who can sit there with you and help you and your partner, if you're married, come to a consensus on what you ought to do. They can be a third party objective sounding board. That is worth something, right? Now, it's not measurable, but it's worth something. It's usually worth a lot, in fact, because money is one of the most common things. In fact, money, by the way, the American Psychological Association, I'm pretty sure it's the number one stressor every time they ever put out the survey in American families. Money, right? So why is personal finance education important? Because money is a huge stressor, even for doctors, and in particular for physicians in training and other medical professionals, right? It's a big stressor for most of us, right? That's why a financial advisor is often helpful for people too, but only if you get the right kind, because if you get the wrong kind, then, oh, by the way, they can be causing massive financial mistakes. How do I know? Because I've seen financial advisors put people into loaded funds and then charge them a 1.5% assets under management fee. If those words don't make sense to you, no big deal. That's why we're here. We want to educate you. All that said, your money mindset matters more than math. What I mean by that in that example is that the value you're getting out of something is more important than the numbers you can measure. So, for example, many doctors think that money is hard and they're afraid of making financial mistakes. And this is the reason why they don't learn more about money and they just hand things over to their financial girl or their financial guy who's handling their money. And this is so fascinating to me, right? Because it's not the math, but it's what prevents you from doing the right thing. And these people are afraid of making financial mistakes, of causing financial harm to their life. And these are the same people that cross clamp patients' aortas or, diagnose people with alpha-1 antitrypsin disease and actually know what that means, by the way. And you went to undergrad, right? And then you went to medical school. And in medical school, you basically learned a new language called Latin, right? And yet we think that money is hard. If you can learn medicine, you can learn money. Money is much, much simpler. Yet what prevents most doctors from investing money in the market and learning about money or learning enough about personal finance to make sure a financial advisor is not taking you to the woodshed is that you're afraid of doing something wrong. Oh, it's too complicated. What if I get something wrong? What if I make a mistake? If you constantly worry about getting it wrong when it comes to investing or any other area of your life, it's just going to prevent you from doing anything at all. And as I just mentioned, by doing this, you're actually going to get it wrong. You're going to lose money to inflation. So not doing anything wrong when it comes to money is actually doing something wrong. Now, it's not a mistake that one of the taglines for the show is start before you're ready, start by starting, start now, because most people have a really hard time getting started. But if you just take a leap and you just learn a little bit about this, now this could be, reading a personal finance book. There's several great personal finance books out there. I've written one in, February of 2019, I think it was. The Physician Philosopher's Guide to Personal Finance. There are other great books out there. Jim Dahle's got The White Coat Investor that, most people know about that. If you want to learn about the psychology of money, there's How to Think About Money by Jonathan Clements and The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. There's a lot of really good resources out there to form a foundation if books are your thing. Podcasts are great. Obviously, we talk about money on this show. But just get started on your personal finance education. You don't need to wait. If you can learn medicine, then you can learn money, right? The third thing I want to bring up is this. Money is a tool. It is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. Money is not the goal. And I know way too many doctors that think that when they get to financial independence, they're going to be happy. Why? Because inside the Alpha coaching experience, we coach lots of burned out doctors who are thinking about making a transition in their career. And they're like, well, if I could just save enough money and become free from medicine, then all of my problems would go away. And I'm going to tell you, just as someone that's a little further down the road than a lot of you listening to this podcast who created a business that provided the financial freedom for me, that is not true. And I can't tell you how many people get on consult calls with our coaches who say, yeah, I went part-time and like I was still burned out. It turns out that money is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. There is an entire self-help section in bookstores about how basically not to suck at retirement, right? And the reason that this self-help section exists is because when people lose what they do for a living and they are forced in retirement to determine what they want to do, what they love to do, and money's not a part of it anymore, it becomes hard. And when I had more time on my hand, I struggled with this too. The reason this happens is that we think that money's the goal, and we think that whether intentionally or unintentionally, that money is the end-all be-all. But it's not. It is the means to an end, not the end itself. And if you get this part wrong, you're going to chase after a dream of getting to financial independence, only to realize that when you get there, it was the journey that really made you happy. It was the process of being and doing what you love that made you feel productive, fulfilled, and happy. It made you feel content. This is the why, life planning and answering, tough questions like the 3 kinder questions. I love pointing people to that. In fact, it's often one of my first lectures inside of a lecture series, the 3 kinder questions. And I tell people, like, look, I can tell you everything that you want to know about the what and the how of personal finance. I can talk to you about the difference between a governmental 457 and a non-governmental 457. I can talk to you about backdoor Roth IRAs. I can talk to you about student loan plans and how to avoid making massive mistakes and the difference between revised pay-as-you-earn and pay-as-you-earn and financial advisors that work under assets under management fees versus, flat fees and fee-based and fee-only models. I can tell you a whole lot of stuff. I can tell you the what and the how of personal finance. But none of it matters if you don't know the why. So answering tough questions like the 3 kinder questions is important. So a dumbed down version of the 3 kinder questions, a couple of them are, what would I do with my life if I had more money than I could ever spend, right? If you were financially independent right now, what would you do with your life? If money didn't matter, what would you do with your life? And you can hit pause right now, as you're listening to this and think about it. It's a really big question, but that's ultimately the question you have to answer when you get to financial independence. So you might as well take your time until you have the answer to that question, right? Another question, if I had 5 to 10 years left to live, what would I spend my time doing? Like there's some things that I do in my life right now that I absolutely would stop doing immediately if I knew that I had a shorter time frame in my life than I'm expecting right now. And that's just me being honest because we're all on this journey together. I still have to figure things out just like many of the people listening to this podcast do every week that join us. But you got to remember at the end of the day, money is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. You have to figure out what you want out of life. And answering the why becomes really important before you start answering the how and the what of money. So I want to make sure that you grasp that, right? So the 3 things that we talked about on this show in terms of your money mindsets are to start with the end in mind. In other words, figure out where you're going. If you want to know how much money you need to save to retire, if you want to know your annual savings goal, you got to figure out how much you want to, you're going to need at the end of your time frame. You need to know also how many years you want to get there. You need to save more money if you want to retire by 50 than you do if you want to retire by 60. That's just the way math works, right? So if you know your age, you know how much you'll need, you can figure out how much that number is. And then you work backwards and figure out how much do I need to be saving each year if I'm going to expect, 5 or 6% in the market. And then you determine your annual savings goal. You can't do that if you don't know where you're going. So start with the end in mind. The second thing we talked about is your mindset for money matters more than math. Turns out that money is 80% behavior and 20% math, and we are psychological beings. It's just the way that we're wired. The third thing is money is a tool. It is a means to an end, not the end itself. It is not the goal. So spend some time figuring out what are you going to use all that financial independence for that you say that you so desperately want when you finally get there. Huge, huge questions, super important to answer. And don't forget that the Medical Degree Financial University, or MDFU, is finally open for enrollment. So this is the personal finance education you wish you received in medical school. The founder's price of $25 per month, yes, it's literally just $25 per month, is only valid through Thursday, June 23rd at midnight. And the purpose of MDFU is to help doctors in training and doctors in practice build an FU account so you can practice medicine because you want to and not because you have to. It consists of weekly live content from personal finance lectures to on-demand courses to a monthly career coaching call. In fact, one of the courses that we sell in the program, we actually used to sell at the Physician Philosopher for over $500. You get that for $25 a month immediately when you enroll. It also includes a private community and a lot more. So to enroll in MDFU and to lock in your founding member's price, make sure to go to mdfu.co. So it's mdfu.co or mdfu.co. That link is in the description of the show that you're listening to right now. So just go to the podcast player, click more. The link will be in that description of this very show. So today's thought was this: if doctors can master medicine, then doctors can master money. Until next time, my friends, start before you're ready. Start by starting. Start now. I'll see you next week. Start before you're ready. Start by starting. Start now.